It is the word no one ever wants to hear, but as the leading cause of death in Canada, too many are hearing it way too often. Of course, I'm talking about cancer, but despite the seriousness of the diagnosis and the disease, we have some hope for you today. Joining us with her personal story is Janet Campbell. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
So tell me a little bit about what led up to your diagnosis of cancer.
Well, it was really quite routine, actually, and it was really a miracle that it was discovered. So I happened to be at my doctor for a routine appointment, and I had not been having any symptoms. And that appointment had some regular blood work, and there was one result that came back a little bit kind of at the end of the ranges, but it wasn't anything that was alarming or that raised flags. But my doctor, thankfully, at that time said that just given that I had celebrated a milestone birthday, you know, I should go and have some other testing done. And it was that testing that really identified the fact that I had a tumor.
Yeah, so that was stage 3, right? Colon cancer?
I was stage 3C.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was actually very advanced.
What kind of prognosis were they giving you, or what kind of scenarios? Do they paint them for you, or do they just leave it at that?
Yeah, well, definitely, it was a pretty serious situation. I had a wonderful oncology team, and my doctor was really very straight with me in sharing any information that I had questions about. And I think that's one of the things that you want to know when you get that diagnosis is, what does that look like for me from a medical standpoint? And so he was very direct. It was very serious. It was late stage. And there's different types of colon cancer, and so the type that I had was very aggressive. And so, yeah, we were very aggressive with treatments, and I underwent major surgery within a matter of weeks of finding out about my diagnosis.
Wow, like your whole world changed.
It really did. Things really changed overnight. I went from having a diagnosis to preparing for this major surgery and going through that process, and then straight into treatment, very aggressive treatment.
And you know, my heart stopped when I read your story, because you were diagnosed in 2020, just a few months into the pandemic. Like, that is the scariest time. A very close person to me was diagnosed that year as well with cancer, and just the thought of going through chemo and having cancer during a pandemic, when you just want to avoid people completely and you can't.
Yeah.
How is that affecting it?
Yeah, that was an interesting time. So my routine appointment that actually discovered the fact that I had cancer was scheduled before COVID hit. And it was scheduled, when it was scheduled and COVID hit, I thought, oh, it's going to be canceled. And it wasn't. And then I went in and this was revealed. And I couldn't believe it. It was very much a fog. And it was a very strange time. Of course, you're going in for the surgery and the treatments and the appointments by yourself. Your family can't be with you. And so I think that was as hard on them as it was on anybody, really, to be in that situation. So it was a really different time. I thought that once they found the diagnosis that I would have disruption in my treatment, because, again, it was such a time when things were being canceled and there was a lot of uncertainty. And really, I do feel that God's hand was on me, and the fact that it was found, and also with respect to the care and the treatment that was put in my path at the right time, because the fact that I was so late stage and it was so aggressive, really, I don't know what that outcome would have looked like for me if, you know, maybe there were delays. So I was very blessed.
You describe this, so you come from a family of faith. Your mom, of course, well-known, former MP Joyce Smith. You describe this moment where you can see her outside the hospital in her car praying for you as you go in for surgery, which is so beautiful. But, you grew up in faith, but how was your faith playing into this in those, that moment where you're facing a very serious diagnosis, you don't know the outcome, and you have to go through surgery? How was that changing your relationship with God?
I really deepened my relationship with God at that time. Definitely my faith is what carried me through the experience. I definitely had a lot of interaction with the Holy Spirit, and just, praying and talking with God at that time. And I would say that it really deepened my relationship. Faith has always been part of our family. I remember very young being in church and singing at the front of the church, and it was just a part of life. And I think there's times in your life that you go through different phases, and I know for me personally, I have been a business executive. I traveled a lot, and it was hard to find those moments to go and worship and be part of a church community. And so I found it difficult at times to keep that connection and be part of that journey, even though it was part of, who I was and how I was raised. And what it did for me at that time is it really just gave me the opportunity to reground myself in that faith and explore that relationship. And I will say, I don't know how people would get through a struggle like that or anything else without having that faith. Definitely for me, it was really key. Sorry, I just reflect on that time, and I haven't talked about it in a little while, and so that it just gets a little difficult to talk about at times, but. I found I worked from a place of gratitude. So when I had the diagnosis, I worked from a place of gratitude that they found it. Mm-hmm. And I worked from a place of having gratitude for the care team that was around me and my family and all the love and support that I had at that time. It was amazing. And I really was very peaceful through my journey. I remember feeling very much at peace with the fact that this was part of my journey, and while I didn't know what was in store for me and what was ahead, that I was okay with, whatever that plan was, and I was very peaceful about it, actually.
Wow, and that has to be a supernatural act of God, because obviously, any kind of frightening diagnosis is not accompanied by peace naturally in our humanity. And there's this moment that you describe where you felt a presence or a hand on your shoulder. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there were definitely times throughout the journey that really stand out in my mind. But this one time in particular, I was really quite sick. And I had just been dropped off from going for treatment and was settling back in at home. And my son was there. He was in university taking his courses online. And he would greet me and help to get me settled in and bring me whatever I needed. And we had been standing together. And he was checking in with what I needed. And then off he went to gather things up. And again, I was really quite ill at the time, and really quite weak. And you do go through lots of ups and downs in battles. There's lots of starts and stops and complications that come up. And I was in one of those periods, and all of a sudden, I could feel this presence again, and I felt this hand on my back. And I actually thought my son was back. That was what was going through my mind, like he was checking on me or was going to ask me a question. I turned around to look at him and respond, and I was by myself. And so that was a moment where I just paused, and I knew that I was just being comforted and reminded that I didn't need to be afraid, and that I had help and I would be strengthened. And so, yeah.
What a beautiful moment to let you know that you're not alone in the midst of that really dark valley you were in. And we have just a minute left, but I know there's people watching right now who have had a diagnosis that is terrifying, that, words they never wanted to hear. What would be your advice to them about how to face that with faith?
I would just really encourage them to lean into their faith. And I would encourage those around them to do the same. I think when you go through something like this, it's not your journey alone. There's a lot of others around you that are very much affected in this journey. And I would just really lean into your faith. And God works miracles. And so be encouraged.
Yeah, 3 years later now, you are cancer-free.
I am.
You are here.
Yes.
And thank the Lord that they found it. As you said, if you'd put it off during COVID, the outcome could have been so much different. So we're so thankful. And hey, if you're watching and you are facing something in your health that is terrifying you, I just want to remind you that we have resources available. And guess what? We are seeing miracles on that prayer line. People are calling back and saying, doctors can't believe this, but I'm doing so much better. So, no promises, but I tell you what, God will be there for you and give you the same peace that he has given her, and he is no respecter of persons. That number, 1-866-273-4444. Just send an email even at prayer@crossroads.ca. We promise we will pray for you.